This episode of Sideline Warning is brought to you by Roosport, makers of the original magnetic running pouch. Whether you're biking, running, hiking, or even traveling, the Roosport clips to your waistband with magnets for an easy, convenient way to carry what you need without the bulk of belts or bags. Visit theroosport.com and take a look at their products, sizes, and colors and find the Roosport pouch that's right for you. That's theroosport.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sideline Warning, the show where sports takes are sure to go way too far into the field. Here to recap this week's biggest and best sports stories are your hosts, Dave Adams, Ben Foster, and Adam Russell.
And welcome into Sideline Warning, everybody. This is episode 36, and as always, you've got the one, the only golden voice of the Southeast, Dave Adams, coming to you live and in person. I'll say live because we are alive, as Ben pointed out last week. Live and in person from Huntsville, Alabama. And as always, I have brought in my friends all the way down from Hoover, Alabama, the one, the only Hollywood Ben Foster. What's
Hoover?
going on, Ben?
Hoover? Really?
Okay. Birmingham? Weren't you in Hoover for a while?
Homewood?
No.
Homewood? What?
No.
Adam!
Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss.
I haven't brought Adam in yet. Why is he talking out of turn?
I don't know.
Okay. Ben, how you doing?
Good.
Concerts this week? Lots of them?
It's August. It's kind of festival season, so a lot of bands are out in the festival set. The stuff really picks up in the fall.
Okay. Well, any good festivals?
There's just been a few. Birmingham just wrapped up Secret Stages, which is always pretty fun. So
Well, cool.
So I made a couple of appearances there.
For people who don't know, Ben does have a Magic City Music Cast podcast, and he does know a lot about the music, the underbelly, seedy underbelly of Birmingham music. Can we call it the seedy underbelly?
No.
Okay. Well, go check his Magic City Music Cast podcast out. You won't be sorry that you did check it out. Okay, Ben, we did also bring in our friend. You ready? Ready for all these suburbs? From the House of Mouse, from Orlando, from Howie in the Hills, from Yeehaw Junction, from Tangelo Park, from Lake Mac Forest Hills. I got one more. Buenaventure Lakes, the one, the only, Adam Russell.
I'll say, out of all the ones that you've named, Buenaventura Lakes and Yeehaw Junction are actually the two closest I think you've hit to where St. Cloud actually is. If you miss our exit on the turnpike, the one that's right by our house, Yeehaw Junction is the next one you can get off on the turnpike. So well done, Dave. I'm proud of you. The dart is getting closer and closer by the week.
I think you might have just told our fans where you live, Adam.
I don't care if they know where I live. There's 30 people going to come knocking down.
Please, people,
for dinner. It's fine.
Please, people, do not disturb Adam. Please, give him his privacy. Give him his privacy. Oh my gosh, is that a doorbell I hear? They're already there.
Oh, what is that already?
Who's knocking?
So last week I outed my poor parents. This week I've outed myself. My family will have no privacy. I'm sorry. And my apologies for jumping in. I started listing off Birmingham suburbs. I thought that would be pertinent, but I talked out of turn, so my apologies.
Pelham. Okay. Anyway, so guys, here we are. We had a nice, quiet off season. Nothing had happened. No players had been arrested. It was a very quiet front on Alabama, quiet front on pretty much all of college football until Big Ten Media Day. We don't normally talk about the Big Ten on this podcast because really, who cares about the Big Ten?
I would have bet a Big Ten that we would not be talking about Big Ten Media Days.
Yeah, and I don't really like talking about what we have to talk about now. But here again, Urban Meyer has found himself in a situation where it's less than ideal. Do we need to go into the background, or do you think people understand and know what's going on now?
Yeah, I think at this point most folks know.
Well, I'm sorry. Can we get just a brief chronological timeline of exactly what happened? Because, guys, I got to tell you, between media days, what he said there, the ESPN interview that Smith had, and then the statement afterwards where he retracted what he said at media days, just like a brief summary,
Well,
I think
tell you
might
what.
launch the conversation well, because I think that they've made the story a little more confusing than they intended for it to be with what happened late last week.
Funny you should ask that, Adam, because I have it pulled up.
Oh, you're so good, Dave.
I
You're
know,
prepared.
right? For once, I did prepare, right? So I'm going to go all the way back to when Zach Smith and Urban Meyer were at Florida. June 21st, 2009, police in Gainesville, Florida, arrested Zach Smith on suspicion of aggravated battery against his wife, who was pregnant at the time. The charges were later dropped because of insufficient evidence. Courtney Smith told Stadium that Bruce, Zach Smith's mother, and the attorney representing her husband all pressured her to drop the charges. I don't know who Bruce is at the time, but that's just what it says. In 2012, Urban Meyer hired Zach Smith to be his wide receivers coach at Ohio State. In June of 15, Zach Smith and his wife separated. Somewhere between October 25th and 26th of that same year, Courtney Smith called police in Powell, Ohio, and then visits the police department in person after another incident with her then estranged husband. Courtney alleges that Zach Smith refused to return their son after a parental visit. She also claims that he had abused her on multiple occasions. No charges were filed. Courtney Smith told Stadium the incident was the last time Zach Smith ever laid his hands on me. As part of the video interview, Stadium posted photographs Courtney Smith took in 2014 that appeared to show injuries to her arm and neck. November 19 through 12 of 2015, Powell police investigate a claim by Courtney Smith of menacing by stalking by Zach Smith. No charges are filed, but Zach Smith is issued a restraining order on November 10th. Courtney Smith filed for divorce 2 days later. Fast forward 2 years, December 19th of 2017. Zach Smith is given criminal trespass warnings after reportedly making harassment or threats at 1:30 a.m. Murphy reported he tried to enter Courtney Smith's residence. No files were charged. May 12th of this year, Powell City police cite Zach Smith with misdemeanor criminal trespass after a dispute with his wife. The two argued over where Zach Smith should have dropped off his son. Now we come to July 18th. Zach Smith appears in Delaware County Municipal Court for a pretrial hearing related to the May trespass charges. Court records show Smith pleaded not guilty to the charge on June 5th. July 20th, Courtney Smith is granted an order of protection against her ex-husband that prohibits him from getting within 500 feet of her. July 23rd, Murphy published a story on Facebook that basically broke everything. Ohio State later announced that day that Meyer had fired Zach Smith. No reason was given. July 24th, Urban Meyer denies any knowledge of the 2015 incident, telling reporters at the Big Ten Media Days he only learned of the allegations against Zach Smith when someone in his office told him that day. Keep in mind that on August 1st, the very next week, Ohio State places Meyer on paid administrative leave and begins to investigate the Zach Smith matter. Courtney Smith tells Brett McMurphy that she and Urban Meyer's wife, Shelley, texted about the Zach Smith allegations. August 2nd, Ohio State announces the formation of a 6-person panel to oversee the investigation. August 3rd, Zach Smith, in a series of interviews, denies abusing his ex-wife and says he would not be in favor of Meyer losing his job. Urban releases a statement around the time of Smith's interview with ESPN. In it, he says he reported the 2015 that he claimed he didn't know about allegations against Zach Smith and went through the proper channels within the university. He also says it wasn't his intention to be inaccurate or misleading during his Big Ten Media Day session. Shortly after Meyer's statement and Smith's interview, Brett McMurphy tweets what he says is a text exchange between Courtney and Zach Smith. In it, Courtney appears to remind her ex-husband that he attempted to strangle her during a vacation trip to Mexico in March of 15, and then attacked her in April of that year. Zach Smith appears to confirm the incidents and then apologizes. There's your timeline.
So looking at Urban's portion itself,
Right.
2015, there was an incident. Big Ten Media Days. He said he didn't know about it until that day.
Right.
But it turns out that he reported it in 2015 and came back and said that he just wasn't ready to talk about it.
Exactly.
Okay. Clear as mud.
Yeah. So here's my thing. In this now Me Too era, when everything's going to hell in a handbasket basically in Hollywood, women are finally getting their voices out there. How can this end in any other way but Ohio State showing Urban Meyer the door?
It's hard to imagine anything other than that. Especially since Ohio State also now has a few other issues going on. There is a guy affiliated with the wrestling program that has done some things that kind of put Ohio State in almost a Michigan State type light, as far as this guy who was like a assistant coach or a doctor involved with guys on the wrestling team. And so you have all these issues coming up at the same time. And Ohio State's got to be looking at this and saying, we're on the verge of having the same situation here that Michigan State's had, and I just don't see a way that they can keep proceeding with Urban Meyer. But the fact that he's not fired yet makes you think they're trying to figure out some way to keep him.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're just trying to ride out the storm and let the outrage die down, let the news cycle regenerate, and then it's not going to be anything anybody's talking about once some news story hits, and they're going to slap him on the wrist with a suspension. I agree with what Feinbaum said. I think it was today or late yesterday where he said that I think the quote was like, whether it's a 2-game or 4-game suspension, he'll survive. And he'll end up sitting down across from Reese Davis or Tom Rinaldi crying on camera while his wife looks at him and talks about how he's the greatest man she's ever known. We've all seen the movie before, and you bet they're just spending time right now coming up with the narrative. And it kind of feels like that to me. I heard someone mention that the way they've gone about the investigative panel that they've pulled together actually covers them for when ultimately they do fire him, that it's the right way to go about that, because then he can't sue or come back with anything saying that they didn't handle it the right way. I actually think that it covers them both ways, where they can say, look, we pulled together a bunch of impartial people and all of us agree that it's not the right thing to fire him. I think it actually gives them leeway to make a decision either way. But it does feel like they're just kind of waiting for the furor to die down a little bit.
Let me ask you this. If this was Nick Saban behind this 8-ball, wouldn't the outcry from the country be fire his you-know-what? Because everyone hates Nick Saban. It seems to me that Ohio State fans are all rallying behind Urban Meyer. And it's crazy because, well, think about it. Let's go back.
They're not all rallying behind Urban Meyer.
Well, they didn't all show up.
The report tonight is that 25 people showed up to rally for Urban Meyer. So they're not
the pictures.
So the Ohio State fans are not all there. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's go back to a situation. I mean, this pales in comparison, but Mike Price at Alabama. Alabama fans were wanting to have his butt fired. I would say that if it came out that Nick Saban was harboring a criminal like this, then I would want to believe that Alabama fans would rally and say, yeah, it's probably time for Nick to go.
ESPN would have 24 hours of Feinbaum would be the first thing that would happen. But you'd better believe that like Alabama's fan base is not above acting like some of these Ohio State fans. There will be some Alabama, if a situation like this ever shows up at Alabama, there will be some Alabama fans that defend Saban no matter what. And there will be some that are ready to fire Saban no matter what. Yeah. And there's not going to be a uniform response from any fan base when a scandal like this arises.
Well, I think especially if you look at the fact that this is strike number 2. I mean, not strike number 2 in terms of Urban having done something wrong, but this is a continued pattern with this guy who continued to be hired by the same head coach. And I think that's the problem, is that it shows that he was giving this guy a second chance. This guy failed at a second chance. And I think if you look, they fired him. Okay, they made that part of it right. They did what they should have done.
But they fired
I think
him
if you look
2
at Urban
years
Meyer's
later.
piece of this,
They fired him.
And,
they fired him.
And that's
days
my
or
point
hours
is that if
before
you
the
look at
story
Urban
broke.
Meyer's.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, sorry. If you look at Urban Meyer's piece of this specifically, if he did report this in 2015, then like he's saying, I think that statement says it pretty clearly that he did report it. You're coming now saying he didn't actually do anything about it until 2 years later when the story broke and it became a big deal. I don't think lying at media days means anything to this now. Whether he was ready to talk about it, not ready to talk about it. The fact is you reported this yourself and didn't do anything about it for 2 years. That's the fireable offense, I think, at the end of the day. The clause in his contract that avoids them having to pay him, I think it's like $38 million, does say that he has to report through proper channels this type of thing. I don't know if that covers him or not, that the guy wasn't fired.
Well, here's the thing. This is Joe Pa all over again.
Yeah.
Joe Pa, I went to the proper channels, told you about Jerry Sandusky. Well, but you didn't fire him. But I told you about him. We're still going to fire you. Penn State did the right thing, and they got Thor's hammer levied down upon them by the NCAA. Now, this is one man beating his wife. This isn't one man fondling 30 young boys. But it's the same harboring of a criminal. So while I don't think the NCAA needs to get involved, I don't think we need this independent counsel to say yay or nay in 2 weeks. I think Ohio State needs to man up, do the right thing, and fire Urban Meyer. And Urban Meyer does not need to coach for another college team. Urban Meyer can go to the AAF and coach semi-professional football all he wants. But Adam, let's talk as fathers here for a second.
Yeah.
If Urban Meyer comes to you and Aiden is at the top prospect and he wants to go to Ohio State, and Urban Meyer's coming to you and saying, we're going to mold Aiden into the young man you want him to be. And you see what his recruiting coordinator, Zach Smith wasn't just a wide receivers coach. He was the recruiting coordinator. And Zach Smith and Urban Meyer come to you, but you know that Urban Meyer basically told Zach Smith, yeah, you're a good recruiting coordinator, but you beat your wife, but I'm still going to let you mold these young men. And Urban Meyer sits and tells you to your face, I'm going to mold Aiden into the young man that you want him to be. Do you believe him?
Oh, not at all. Not in a million years. And if this had been a guy he just hired that didn't have a history, they didn't have a history together, and he hired him, the guy did something wrong, he fired him, he did the right thing, possibly then I think you could say, okay, I might consider that, especially if it seemed like the right thing for my son. But the fact that he's worked with this guy before, it's happened before, he knew it happened before, he knew it happened again, and he still didn't fire him. It just shows that, I think what Feinbaum talked about with the arrogance of Urban Meyer and the fact that he feels like he's above anything that anybody else has to deal with in some of these cases, I think that plays out. And not only do I not want my son to have someone around him that does that with his wife, I don't want my son to be around someone that thinks that they can release a statement that has nothing to do with the core issue at hand and get away with it. So,
yeah, exactly. And what we're forgetting here, people are sweeping under the rug that Urban Meyer did not do a good job of handling players at Florida. Let's look at the players that got in trouble at Florida. I don't know. Aaron Hernandez, for one, we knew that he was trouble in Florida. We knew that, players got arrested all the time. He set them out for a half. Players did drugs all the time. He set them out for a half. And it all got swept under the rug because Urban Meyer, I feel that when Urban Meyer was at Florida, people put him in the same Mark Richt category. These two high outstanding coaches. And then, he goes and when he retires, he says, I want to spend time with my family. I took him at his word for that. But the second he quit Florida, Adam, what company did he go work for?
I believe it was ESPN.
Yeah. And when you work for ESPN, are you on the road a lot, especially being a college football talking head?
Like an analyst type role? Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yep. Unless you land one of the cushy ones where you get to just do it from your office, yes.
Which he didn't. He was on the road.
Which he did not.
Right. He was on the road all the time. So how many volleyball games did he go to of his daughters? How many softball games did he get to go to of his daughters? None. because he was on the road with ESPN. So that bullcrap lie.
Do you know that? How do you know that? Is that documented?
Well, no, but think about it though, Ben. I mean, all the time he was on the road with ESPN, his daughter was being recruited by a college to go play volleyball. All the time he was on the road with ESPN, his younger daughter was playing softball.
Yeah, but a lot of these guys are home like 3 or 4 days a week, and then they're still doing studio stuff and stuff on the road a couple of days a week. I think he could have seen some volleyball games. He definitely could have seen some softball games because that's not the same time frame as football season. But
stop taking it up for Urban Meyer.
I am not taking up for Urban Meyer. I am not taking up for Urban Meyer in any way. But what I am taking up for is the facts. There's a lot going on where the information is swirling around. And I understand that that's what this committee is for, is it's got to go gather the facts. And I don't think the committee actually is having to spend that much time making a decision on Urban Meyer. I think what they've got to determine is who else was coordinating with Urban Meyer in this scandal. You can say Zach Smith, you can say Urban Meyer, but what you've also got to say was Gene Smith, the athletic director, involved? What did he know, and when did he know it? Clearly, Zach Smith's grandfather, who's a former coach, was involved. It looks like multiple people from Urban Meyer's staff were involved in various different forms in all of this, as people that knew stuff and didn't report it, or people that were interacting with Zach Smith's wife and trying to discourage information, and also the fact that Urban Meyer's wife is an employee of Ohio State. All of these things factor in, and I think that's what the committee's got to take 2 weeks for, is to determine just how much all of these people were involved and how much all of them knew and how much of it was directed by Urban Meyer.
Let's touch on a subject you just kind of said very quickly there, Ben. Urban Meyer's wife is not only an employee of Ohio State, she is also a registered nurse. And as a registered nurse, if someone texts you something that she supposedly was texted by Courtney Smith, she is bound, I think it's by Title IX, maybe not Title IX, it's bound by some law that she has to report it. So basically, Urban Meyer, by saying he knew nothing of it, threw his wife under the bus. Is that the man that you picture when he says he wants to take time off to spend time with his family?
You're on a roll, Dave. Go for it.
Do you really think
I
hate Urban Meyer. I always have, but I am now justified in my hatred.
There was a very wise sports analyst by the name of Ben Foster that had a quote the other day in one of our Facebook Messenger chats. Gosh, it's escaping me now, but it was basically just like people. I think it was Jim Tressel, right? Was fired for people selling memorabilia, and it's like, this is in a completely different category than some guys did some stupid crap on the team and you didn't stop them, and institutional control and that kind of stuff. This is you knowingly had a criminal on your staff for 2 years after they had a past of something that specifically in your contract says you would not allow to happen, and you allowed it to happen. I mean, this is completely different. I don't understand how it's not already resolved, but I go by the wisdom of Benjamin Foster on that one.
Well, and I didn't come to that thought all by myself. In multiple places, people have pointed to the Tressel situation, where if a player can get a free tattoo and that cost a championship-winning coach his job, you've got to think it should cost Urban Meyer his job. If he's involved in any way in knowing about this stuff and not handling it better than he has, and that's the thing, like. That it would be the peak of hypocrisy for Ohio State to keep him around. And that's why, some of these guys like Feinbaum have backed off and said, oh, maybe a suspension's coming. But there's going to be some serious protests going on if Ohio State just gives Urban Meyer some sort of slap on the wrist. If Urban Meyer coaches at any point during this season, it is going to be a huge issue, and people are going to compare it to Tressel. Urban Meyer's best hope was that something like the Tressel situation had not happened, so there was no precedent. But to keep Urban Meyer goes in the complete opposite direction of the precedent Ohio State's already set. And I don't think that's very smart for Ohio State if they try to keep him around, because then they're going to have some very serious situations on their hands, not too different than what's happened at Michigan State over the past 6 months. So,
well, even the Michigan State stuff, Ben, they're still there. Tom Izzo is still the head coach at Michigan State. So has Michigan State set the precedence of, well, we'll sweep it under the rug, we'll find a way to keep them?
I think that there are some differences between Izzo and Meyer, where Izzo learned about them, it appears, after the fact. It seems like Meyer knew stuff and didn't do anything about it, and then lied about it. Izzo, at least, doesn't seem to be lying on the record anywhere yet, and I think that's a really important distinction. So. That's not to defend Tom Izzo. The way he's handled a lot of this has been questionable, but I gotta think that Ohio State's going to be in a lot of trouble in the court of public opinion, if nothing else, if they try to keep Urban Meyer.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And I want to put it this way, Ben. We're talking about coaches lying. Bruce Pearl, I hate him. He's fat. I get to mention that once again. But Bruce Pearl lied about having a barbecue. That's all Bruce Pearl lied about. But he was fired by Tennessee and had a show cause by the NCAA.
Well, that's because that was a specific NCAA violation. And unfortunately, the NCAA doesn't actually have a whole lot of rules about this kind of conduct. Unfortunately, they just let the regular legal system handle it, which unbelievably gives schools wiggle room to keep a coach.
Well,
sorry.
Go ahead,
Dave.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if you look at the coverage of the, quote, dozens of people that held a rally outside of Ohio Stadium's North Rotunda, there's a lot in there that says ESPN equals fake news, fire ESPN, ESPN or SEC frauds, that type of thing. I mean, have you guys seen ESPN give fake news on this? Like, is that the stance they should be taking? I mean, they're saying quotes, too, from that rally of, we're not trying to cast any blame on the victim or her husband. I mean, why would you even, it just feels so odd that you have this situation where you're even putting it out there that the victim might be to blame for this, or that ESPN is to blame for this, when it's obvious that something has happened.
Well, and first off, it wasn't even ESPN. ESPN fired Brett McMurphy. Brett McMurphy had to put this out on his Facebook wall.
But it wasn't the Chris Smith. It wasn't the Smith interview a way for them to kind of make up and give him his opportunity to say his piece too? I mean, it didn't feel like they were trying to do an character assassination piece on him or a hit piece.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. It just, I don't understand. Even the rally just feels weird and put together and staged, just like the interview and then the tweet and the statement that went with it.
You don't want to be the guy defending Urban Meyer right now. That's not a piece of real estate anybody's interested in.
And there is literally somebody sitting here holding a sign. And for the love of Pete, you Ohio State fans, I know you're freaking out. But one of the signs says, "Me too. I stand with Urban Meyer." Me too? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to put that on a sign right now? I don't understand. It just baffles me. I don't get it. I know if it was Coach Saban, I don't even want to think about what some of the signs would say.
It would be absurd. It would be absurd, and it would be shameful, and it would be wholly unacceptable. But it would also probably happen. And every fan base has at least 25 fans that would come out and do something like that. And Ohio State's proven that. And those are the kind of people that show up and put on a show, and then everybody else in the fan base goes, "I'm embarrassed to even be associated with these people via T-shirt, having a similar T-shirt to them." That's not what good fandom does not actually want to win at all costs.
Yeah,
right.
People talk about win at all costs, but you don't win at all costs when it comes to promoting the kind of stuff that Zach Smith's been alleged of. That's that is never acceptable and never okay to support. And the fact that there's people out there trying to do that doesn't represent Ohio State well, and that's not representative of what Ohio State's real fans are like.
Yeah, I put the equation of two. Alabama is not Harvey Updike. There are Harvey Updikes in the Alabama fandom. There are people who support with the Me Too Urban Meyer at Ohio State. We know that there are good Ohio State fans out there that don't support Urban Meyer harboring this criminal, but it is funny to see people out there supporting Urban Meyer right now when they're going to be on the wrong side of history, I hope.
Yeah.
So,
but hey, mad props to the guy who had the guts to hold up a sign that says Feinbaum's words are weaker than Alabama's football schedule, though.
Hey,
that's nobody's ever come up with that one before.
Alabama's football schedule is pretty weak this season. I understand.
I mean, we can't all play Indiana, Minnesota, Tulane, Rutgers. I mean, we can't all be in the Big Ten.
Hey, they have two good teams.
Purdue.
Hey, but let's okay. Before my blood starts boiling on Urban Meyer, let's put that to bed. We've got a lot we can talk about on that one. Yeah, Urban Meyer should be fired by the time this podcast goes up, but it won't happen. Quick poll: will Urban Meyer coach a game this year at Ohio State? I say he finds a way to wiggle his way out of it.
Yep, I agree.
I'm gonna say no. I think Ohio State, the panel they have assembled, will do the right thing.
Okay. Speaking of not doing the right thing, Alabama football, guys. Practice started last week. We had a nice, quiet off season. Nothing happened. And then Alabama has his first scrimmage on Saturday. Jalen looked great. Tua looked great. Tua had more snaps with the first team. I was like, all right, here we go. Then somebody puts a microphone in Jalen's face. Do I need to read this quote off as well?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, hit the highlights. Sure.
It's lengthy, but I've got to read it all.
Yeah.
Somebody asked him about the situation of the offseason. And he said, this is a direct quote. This is a situation that is uncontrollable. Coaches can't control the situation. They'll dictate who plays, but as far as other variations to it, they don't control it, honestly. Like I said, this whole spring, ever since the game, A-Day, they kind of wanted to let it play out. They kind of, I guess, didn't think it was a thing or tried to let it die down, like it wasn't something there. It just always been an elephant in the room. And it's like, for me, no one came up to me the whole spring, coaches included. No one asked me how I felt. No one asked me what was going on in my mind. No one asked me how I felt about the things that was going on. Nobody asked me what my future held, and that's that. So now it's like, when we try and kind of handle the situation now, for me, it's kind of late. It's too late. The narrative has already been created. A reporter asked if it was a quote-unquote problem or a quote-unquote issue for you, that coaches or teammates hadn't reached out to ask him. He said, I think as a player, you definitely want to feel some concern from your coaches, I guess. But I don't necessarily think that we're not concerned, because they're definitely concerned. I just don't think that they were maybe bold enough to ask like it was. Bold enough to ask like it was, no, it's there, but I don't want to talk about it. And I definitely think it was something that should have been talked about a long time ago instead of being talked about when it's here. It's kind of like a stove. After that game, the stove got turned on. The heat got turned up. Now it's like, okay, put the pot on the stove. Now we put the food on the stove. Now the food's cooking, all right? And come the season officially starts, the food will be done. Regardless of what people say, I'm still here. As far as I'm concerned, my job is to be the best quarterback I can be, and that's what I strive to do every day. Ladies and gentlemen, Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
Does that sound like a guy who is all in on being a teammate, whether he's first team or second team?
He sounds like a guy who knows he's lost the starting job.
Right, but he officially hasn't yet. It says Tua Tagovailoa / Jalen Hurts on the depth chart.
Sure, but everybody knows what's up. Like you can put them both, like for public consumption. You can put both of their names on the first line, but it's pretty clear if Tua's getting more snaps with the first team, if Jalen's talking like that, it's pretty clear the contest is over. Tua has won, and Tua's going to be the starting quarterback.
Well, when you talk about the narrative already being created, yes, I completely agree. The narrative was created on 2nd and 26. The narrative was created after the Iron Bowl. The narrative was created when Jalen came back on A-Day and showed the exact same tendency to scramble before he really read the defense and made a decision to throw. The exact same thing that cost us the Iron Bowl and a shot at the SEC championship was exactly what he did right out of the gate on A-Day. So the narrative has already been created by his own performance. And I don't know what exactly it is that he would want from the coaches in this situation. I know we had some kind of a little pre-meeting or pre-podcast chat earlier, and I don't know if it's, do you want to have someone ask you, how do you feel? Do you want to have someone ask you what's going on? But you brought it up earlier, Dave, about developing these players and developing them not just as players but as men. To go from the afterglow of the national championship of, oh, we're all a team and it's cool that Tua got the chance and I was there backing him, to now, well, I just kind of, it feels like he's basically saying, I'm just kind of left here to the side. No one cares about me. And, the narrative's already been created. That's a huge swing. And I can't believe that the coaches haven't been involved with him, talking to him, sharing with him feedback so that he can improve. But it just feels like this millennial, no one really cares about me kind of response. And after what he said after the Natty, I just, it doesn't really mesh with me.
Well, let's look at how Jalen was raised. I'm not going to get into racial discussion here. I'm not going to get into anything that can be taken in a bad way. But let's first look. A couple weeks ago, Jalen's dad said that when he leaves, if he's not the starter, he will be the biggest free agent college football has ever seen. Okay, that's his dad. So
I agree with his dad.
Right.
There are a ton of teams. There are a ton of teams that go, wait, he's played in 2 national championship games. He's what's his record in the regular season? Yes, I would love to have him come quarterback for my team. Okay. I think his dad has got a huge point there. There are a ton of people who would kill to have Jalen Hurts, except for Alabama, because he's the second best quarterback on the team.
I think from an experience standpoint, you're right, but I agree with what Stephen A. said when he weighed in on all of his quotes. He's unimpressive.
Right.
I mean, Jalen got us there. There's no doubt about it that he was a big part of everything that we've done. But overall, he's never been there in that same position that Tua has been in, where he just blows the doors off, right? Like, he did enough to win. And it's not – I think that teams would love to have him. I don't doubt that. He's got the experience to back it up. But he's just not – impressive enough to have this whole diva thing that he seems to be bringing to the table now.
Right.
It's like if the last season had ended completely differently for him than it had, come with a little bit of swagger, a little bit of attitude. But the wheels just came off of the Jalen bus at the end of last season. Now is not the time to be coming with this kind of mentality, because I would just say, okay, fine. If the narrative's already been created, go sit down. If you're not fighting anymore and you don't want the job and you're not going to fight for it and you just want us to ask you how you feel, go listen to the rat poison, eat it, let it digest, and go sit down. That's what I would tell him, honestly.
So Ben, you kind of jumped in before I was going to get to my second point. So we heard Jalen's dad, I'm going to take my ball and go home if I'm not the starter. Well, after Jalen made his statement on Saturday, and people kind of turned on Jalen by what he was saying, one Miss Pamela Hurts, Jalen's mother, went to Facebook. And this was a direct quote from his mom's Facebook. It's 2 paragraphs. Wow, ignorance is bliss. When has Jalen ever spoke to media about anything other than the team? When has he ever whined, pouted, or talked about what, quote-unquote, y'all don't know takes place behind the scenes? There's a reason why players aren't allowed to speak to the media. Jalen spoke his truth finally after 3 years of being compliant and controlled. You have no idea what is and what has been going on, and most likely never will. Folks quick to speak highly on his character and demeanor, but know he is completely opposite of those accolades today. If you can turn on this young man today and not your president for any of his rhetoric, you were never with him to begin with. So let's look at Miss Pamela Hurts and Coach Hurts and look at how Jalen was raised. This is a take my ball and go home mentality coming from this home. So it's a shocker to me that Jalen even showed that mentality after the national championship game.
Yeah.
Showing how his mom and his dad are both acting out in a millennial sense.
Well, I mean, for me, if I'm Saban and I say rat poison and I don't like these types of distractions, this takes us away from what every individual is supposed to do to make their job, all the things in the process, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got Jalen's dad, Jalen's mom, and Jalen now all kind of, I feel like his mom and dad have gone over the line and made it clear that they're unhappy. I feel like Jalen walked right up to it, but didn't quite step across the line enough to tick off, the coaches, right? But then you got Tua during the same media days. And again, it might be easier for him to say it because he feels more confident. But they asked him specifically, are you looking at winning the starting job? And he said, I'm not focused on winning a job. I'm focused about working with my team to get us to a better place so that we can all as individuals do our jobs to win. That's not a direct quote, but that's the gist of what he said. That fits exactly within what Nick Saban has always preached at Alabama since day one. So I think not only from a performance standpoint, but from an attitude standpoint, he's the clear choice, especially if Jalen's going to end up parroting back a little bit of what his parents have been saying. It's not even in the realm of possibility in my mind that Jalen is the starter come September 1. It's just not after this. No, especially with Tua. I mean, it's Nick's thing. When you talk to the media, you speak the party line. You toe the line. You say what I have told you to say and what we say, and you don't let them know that there's anything going on behind the scenes, because if there is, they're going to find it anyway. Don't let it come from you, right? And Jalen's just given into it, and I'm really disappointed in him, especially given how Tua is reacting. I'll get off my soapbox.
I don't fault Jalen's mom. Like, any mom wants to see her kid be the starter. That's not even a millennial thing. And I don't quite understand some of the points she's making, but I totally get any mom is going to be irrationally believe her kid's the best on the field, or at least like believe her kid should have a fighting chance. And honestly, I gotta keep going back to this. Jalen wouldn't say those things unless he knew he was already out of the job, because if he had a chance at the job, he just cost himself the job by talking like that to the media. Regardless of whatever his mom and dad think, Jalen's responsible for Jalen. He can't control everything his parents do, but Jalen's responsible for Jalen. And Jalen may not make the best decisions, as this shows, but if he said this while he was still in the running for the starting job, that makes him the dumbest player on the team. And I just don't believe he's that dumb. I think he's actually a smart guy, and I think his parents actually raised him to be a pretty respectful guy. And I think some frustrations boiled over in this interview, and the only way I can expect him to lose his cool, because everybody wanted to, his freshman year, everybody wanted to talk about how cool he was, how cool and calm and collected he was, how he was somebody that didn't show a ton of emotion because he was a pretty steady hand. For this to boil over like this, I've got to think he knows he doesn't have the job. But this is colossally silly, because Tua, I think, is fragile. All we've got to go on is a half of a game where Tua played great. And then after that, Tua smashes his hand and loses a whole bunch of practice time. I don't know that Tua's going to be that durable. He scrambles. We always had that fear with Jalen, and I think Jalen's more durable than Tua Tagovailoa is. If Tua's out there running around, there is a huge potential for him to get hurt. And Jalen could very easily have the starting job by default of Tua not playing. And that's why I think it's there's just no reason to go out and say all this stuff, because Jalen could very well wind up finishing the season as the starting quarterback just because Tua won't be able to play.
But so let me ask you that then. Do you think that this is at a point? And again, hey, I'll say really quick. Dave will tell you, I can't fault anybody's mama for loving, for being. I can't fault anybody's mama for reacting like this to anything they do, right? Because my mama loves me, and there's never anybody in the world that's doubted that. But I think when you take the parents and then you add him to it doing it, I think that pushes it over the edge. So let me ask you guys this: has he cost himself the backup job? Would you put him on the field? Let's say we go out against Louisville. It's a beautiful day in Orlando, and suddenly in the second quarter, Tua's hurt. Would you put Jalen in? A game that we should have under control, a game that we shouldn't have to really have a top-notch starter to win. Do you put him in after this?
Do I trust Jalen Hurts after he just made a fool of himself in the media like this? No. But do I trust Jalen Hurts less, or do I trust Mark Jones more than I trust Jalen Hurts? Also no.
Mark Jones?
Or Mac Jones, whatever his name is.
There we
Mac
go.
Jones.
Hey,
sorry.
good job. You got it.
I trust whatever Jay Barker's son more than I trust Mac Jones, whatever.
Even with Tua not getting hurt in the Louisville game, Alabama is going to hang 50 on Louisville. Let's be honest. Petrino's teams never have defense, and Alabama's ready to go. Regardless of all this drama, Bama's ready to go.
Alabama, get behind me, Satan.
Alabama is going to hang 50 on Louisville. If Alabama doesn't play two quarterbacks, it is a critical malfeasance on the part of Nick Saban, and that's not going to happen. Alabama is going to play two, if not three quarterbacks against Louisville. The question is, who will those people be? And you've got to think that Jalen gets in there in one way, shape, or another, unless he just decides to bolt. But that's so silly because he would have to sit out for a whole season if he transfers somewhere else, where if he will just hang on for 6 months and keep his mouth shut, he can transfer as a graduate in December. He's got to hang on for this grad transfer, and anything other than that would be colossally stupid.
First, let me go ahead and say it just because it's blowing my mind. Ben, your predictions are failures.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay. I just had to get that out there. Whew, okay. But I don't know. I mean, does Jalen even want to play? That's the question. His talk in the media makes me think he doesn't even want to put on that crimson and white now. Is that stupid? Yeah. But was what he said in the media Saturday stupid? Hell yeah. I'm fired up and yeah.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense to transfer right now when you could grad transfer. I think he's got to hold on. And you know, a lot of this comes to the coaches because it's their job to manage the players, and they don't have to sit down and ask them how they're feeling, but they do have to manage the personalities and manage the potential conflicts, and they have to manage the message that the players present to the media. They do have to handle all of that. But also, it's not entirely the coaches on the hook for picking who the starting quarterback is. It is also the players. And the players have a huge say in who the starting quarterback is. That doesn't mean they're running the show. Saban's going to make the final decision, but the players respond and play for the guy they want to be the quarterback. And if Jalen's lost this job, it's because he's lost the team too. And Tua's the better player, the better quarterback, the better slinger of the ball, and it's not entirely on the coaches. And it's, you know, the coaches don't have to ask how you feel. They just have to coach you. They have to get you ready for the job and get you ready for the competition. And Jalen lost. That's all there is to it. Yeah. Jalen lost, and he's not taking it well.
Well, that's the other thing. If he hadn't already lost the team, doing what he did Saturday, not only lost Saban, it lost every man in that locker room.
There's a code. There's a code you got to follow.
Yeah, he broke every code that Nick Saban has ever talked about when he's at Alabama. And you don't expect that from Jalen because, like his mom said, he had towed the company line until just now. And so are we finally seeing that immaturity coming out of Jalen Hurts? I hope not, because I hope that I can put some trust in him if Tua does go down, like Ben said, which he also predicted that. So me calling him his predictions a failure. But I don't trust Jalen now. I didn't really trust Jalen last year, but I doubly don't trust him now.
You'd expect to see at this point in his time at Alabama, you'd expect to see the maturity come through. You'd expect to see him try to be a leader. And for it to be only about him and for Tua to be talking the talk you'd expect to hear of a leader, whether Tua's really there with it or not, we still have to see all of that. You just expect more out of Jalen, I think, at this point, and how long he's been there. And if it's not there, it's not there, and then he lost the job. It's the end of the story. But I just at the end of the day, though, I said it before about grad transfers and stuff like that. At the end of the day, these guys are kids, and the fact that all of these people have gotten so heated about this and said different things about him is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, these guys have a lot of exposure, and he has to understand that, especially if he wants a career at the next level. If he's pulling this stuff now, look at what we talked last week with Des Bryant and the Cowboys. You start getting in people's ear in the locker room, and you don't support the coaches, and you don't, push the team forward as a leader, and you get left to the side of the road. And if he's doing it now, it just makes me concerned about him and his overall future. So
I spent the entirety of last season, and including the first half of the national championship game, defending Jalen Hurts and saying that everyone who thought Tua should be starting was crazy. And now it seems pretty clear that I was wrong for the first time in a very long time on that front. And so, there is no doubt now. All doubt has been removed. Tua's got to be the guy until he gets hurt.
I still don't want to say that prediction's true. So can I say your prediction of the Louisville game is a failure, but your prediction of Tua getting hurt is not?
There we go.
Is that okay?
Fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
So something else that's not a failure. I think we've put this to bed. We've talked about Jalen. We've talked about Urban. We've talked about failures. We know that these are not good situations, but something that's not a failure is us taking a break and you hearing from our sponsor, the Roo Sport. So guys, go have a nice Coke and a smile, and we'll see you on the other side of the break where we sit and talk about the Braves trade deadline, which, we're going to be mad about that too. But guys, we'll see you on the other side here on Sideline.
Hey, everybody. While we've got a quick second, I want to tell you again about our sponsor, Roo Sport, at theroosport.com, and the running pouches they make that clip to your waistband with magnets. I know we've talked in the past about our experience with the Dark Side Half Marathon. I'm actually training for my second half marathon with my new Roo Sport that I recently got, and I got to say, still love it. I'm able to really leave the house with just a pair of shoes, a Roo Sport, whatever I need to fit inside at my house key, my phone, and just go. I don't have to worry about taking a belt. I don't have to worry about anything being uncomfortable when I run. It holds what I need. It gets the job done, and it does it in a really comfortable way, which is not something you can say about a lot of running gear out there. And Dave, I know you recently got one. I don't know if you have any experiences you want to share.
Actually, I have been training with it since I got it a couple weeks ago. Just last weekend, I went on a good long run. I went in it, threw some gels in it, threw my phone in it, didn't even feel the pouch. The only reason I knew it was there is because I felt my phone on my hip. Didn't move. The magnets made it stay right there on my belt loop. And honestly, it's the best thing I've ever had because, like I said a couple weeks ago, when I first started running at them, you told me to go get one of those belts that have the water bottles and the little fanny pack looking thing up front. And it just rode up and down when I started running. I didn't like it. It didn't feel comfortable. But this Roo Sport pouch, it really is. It's the best thing you could take when you're running.
Yeah, and we're about to actually go out to some theme parks coming up in the next week or two, and so I'm going to take it out for a spin in a theme park, something completely different than running. So we'll let you guys know how that goes after we have that experience. So visit theroosport.com and take a look at their products. They've got multiple colors, multiple sizes to fit all kinds of phones, and find the one that's right for you, and that's theroosport.com. Go visit their website, take a look at their product.
Guys, welcome back from the break. Hope you are as well rested as we are. Hope you had that nice Coke and a smile. Hope you've had some nice smiles because we were so negative in that first half. And now we're just going to bring it back down because we're going to be negative now. We're going to talk about the Braves and how we think that they did at the trade deadline.
Negative? How can we be negative about that? The Braves handled it perfectly.
Johnny Venters, Brad Brock, however you want to say it.
Brock?
Brock. Adam Duvall, Kevin Guzman, and Darren O'Day. Kevin Gausman? Yeah, him. So it's Kevin Gausman, not Chris Archer, not J.A. Happ. Kevin Gausman. He's a corn dog. He was the 4th overall draft pick out of LSU. He's, I think, controllable for 2 to 3 more years. The Braves traded away some decent pieces. Nothing really to write home about. Giancarlo Encarnacion, Brett Cumberland, Evan Phillips, and there was a 4th guy. I can't think of the 4th guy's name now, but it doesn't really matter.
The point is, the Braves didn't give up a lot.
No, they didn't. And I was really disappointed that the Braves didn't get Chris Archer, but seeing what the Pirates gave up to get Chris Archer,
yeah,
I'm kind of glad the Braves didn't sell the farm to get Chris Archer because I believe I read somewhere that people think that he's the Julio Teheran of Major League Baseball right now, which, by the way, I did call Teheran a failure on last week's podcast, and look, he hit a home run against the Mets.
He sure did.
So you're welcome, guys.
He hit better than he pitched.
Yeah. The only thing that I see the Braves giving up is I was sad that the Braves gave up Preston Tucker, Lucas Sims, and Matt Whistler, all for Adam Duvall. Adam Duvall's good. He can hit the ball a country mile, but he can strike out a country mile as well. And I was sad to see Preston Tucker go. I thought Preston Tucker came into his own on the Braves roster.
Yeah, I think Tucker did some really good things for the Braves, especially at the beginning of the season before Ronald Acuna was ready. While you still had guys, shorthanded at third when you couldn't really put Charlie Culberson out in the outfield as much. Preston Tucker had some really great at bats for the Braves, and it was a shame to see him go because he seemed to add a good bit. But also the Braves kept sending him down to AAA. It wasn't a lock that he was going to be on the 25-man roster all the time. So I don't know that they gave up that much in letting Preston Tucker go. I think the Matt Whistler experiment was kind of done in Atlanta. I think when you see all these other guys like Soroka and Colby Allard coming up, you say, I don't really see a place for Whistler. So I think that was fine to go ahead and send him to Cincinnati, see if he works better in somebody else's system. So Lucas Sims I was a little questionable about because I still think there's a little bit more upside with him. But overall, if Duvall's able to come in and improve the Braves' offense a little bit, that may wind up being a good trade. Right now, Inciarte has been playing so well, you haven't been able to figure out whether Duvall's going to be able to contribute to the Braves much or not.
Well, really what I see Duvall is controllable for 2 years as well. Yeah. I see Duvall as the guy that's going to take over for Nick Markakis when he leaves at the end of the offseason. I don't see Nick Markakis coming back to the Atlanta Braves next year, even though Markakis is having a resurgence of his career. He's 37 years old? 36 years old?
34.
Okay, he's old. He's old for outfielder standards. Duvall is a 20-something-year-old, and I think Duvall is defensively on the same level as Nick Markakis, just has a little bit better power than Markakis. So you'll see Duvall playing more next year, and if Nick Markakis does come back, I think Markakis will be the 4th outfielder.
Yeah, I don't hate the deal. I think I don't agree with some of the analysis of it out there that says it's a classic something for nothing and that it's nothing but positive for the Braves. So I think we did give up a little something, but when you throw sabermetrics at it and you dive down into some of the numbers that are out there, I think you get a guy who has power, who's been an all-star in the past for some guys that were barely at or were just below replacement level. So, I'm not mad about this one. I think this one makes the most sense for me. I think Venner's the other one that I think I'm cool with for the most part. Because we bring a guy back who's familiar with the organization. We know what he brings. He's not going to be an unknown quantity. and he's still got some life left in him. So I think he'll be good for the bench. I think he'll be good for the team. So I think Venters and Duval are actually the two that I think I'm the happiest with. But that's a moderated level of happiness overall, given what was out there to get.
Look, I think Venters has had 4 appearances and Brock's had 3, and so far so good. They haven't really had, Venters has mostly come in just to face one batter at a time, but that was the role they wanted him to fill, was a specialist role.
Yeah.
And it so far so good. It looks like the bullpen is doing much better, with the exception of Minter's blown save over the weekend. The bullpen's looked very good in these last couple of series. So maybe guys are a little bit better rested, and you've got a couple of these fresh faces in there, and that may be enough to shore up the bullpen. Is it going to be as good as the Yankees bullpen? Is it going to look like Craig Kimbrell in the Red Sox? No, but it may be very well good enough for the Braves to win the East.
I don't know. I mean, we're sitting here, we're recording this Monday night, watching the Phillies up 2-0 on the Diamondbacks. Watching these Phillies and these Diamondbacks, two teams that are leading or in the lead, are in the hunt for their division. I understand the Braves are in the hunt, but watching these two teams, they play totally differently than I've seen the Atlanta Braves play. The Braves are a good team right now, but they don't have this moniker of a great team yet. So it's going to be hard for me to say the Braves are going to be contenders this year. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, but I just know that these Braves are going to fail us come September. I just know it.
There we go, Dave. That's what I needed to hear.
Yeah, failure. Love it.
I did not say the F word. I can't say that because they're doing good right now. But I just don't see the Braves. I don't know. I see the Braves letting us down. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, that's, we talked it last week, right? That I felt like this was the opportunity to get that one player that was just going to push us over the edge and take us from a good team to a great team. And I feel like we put some pieces in place that help us get more gooder than we were. I don't think it pushes us to great. I think we'll be in the hunt for the wild card. I don't know about being in the hunt for the division. We'll just have to see how the rest of the season plays out. I think the pieces are there, and I think the team could come together. I mean, they showed it in the first half of the season, but I don't think the trade deadline provided us with anything that makes it a more sure bet than it was before.
There are so many teams right now in the National League that are playing good baseball. I actually think it is harder for the Braves to win the wild card than it is for them to win the East. They're a game and a half behind the Phillies. They've been holding serve with the Phillies right now. I think over the last 10 games, both teams are 6-4. It is much easier to trail the Phillies by a game and a half and close the gap on them than it is to win the wild card when you've got teams surging like the Pirates, like St. Louis, who seem to be back on track. Don't forget the Brewers and the Cubs. One of those teams one team's going to win the division. The other team's going to come in second and is going to be looking good for the wild card. And then you've got a 3-team race to the finish in the West, where whoever finishes in second in the West could be looking pretty primo for a wild card spot as well. So you've really got about 7 or 8 teams that are making a strong argument and a strong run at the wild card, whereas winning the division, you just have to beat the Phillies, and you just have to have more wins than them. The Braves are going to have 7 of their last 10 games against the Phillies. They're going to have 4 of those in Atlanta, and the final 3 games of the season are going to be in Philadelphia. That's going to be must-see baseball, because that is going to determine who wins the East, and it may very well mean the loser goes home.
Yeah, I agree. The loser will go home. The wild card will not come out of the National League East because there are so many other better teams playing in the National League. I agree, Ben. Adam, I want to come back to what you said earlier. Last week you were talking about you want that one player that's going to take us from good to great. Of all the players that got traded, of all the players that were rumored to get traded, who would have been that one player to take us from good to great?
Yeah, I would have said somebody along the lines of an Archer, but I agree with what you said. We don't want to give away what they had to give away. I think it was the Pirates, right? What they had to give away to get him. Like, that's not the game that the front office of the Braves was going to play. We weren't going to give away a lot. I mean, most of this stuff was international money. So we dealt in players that we knew were going to be pretty easy acquisitions that could provide some value in the short term. So I mean, I don't know that there was anybody that we would be willing to go after. It would have been somebody like that though, but I don't think we had the cards in our hand that we were willing to deal to play in that space. That's obvious now.
The only player that I could see, the only position I can see the Braves really truly needing right now is starting pitching.
Yeah.
I think the Braves need a true number one. Folty's not a true number one. Tehran's definitely not a true number one. Sean Newcomb could be in the next year or two, but he's not a true number one this year. Anibal Sanchez, 5 years ago, he was a true number one. He's not now. Kevin Guzman or whatever he is, he's not a true number one. I don't see the Braves having a true number one starter, but I don't know if I'd even put Chris Archer as a true number one starter.
Yeah, that's true.
No, on a very competitive playoff team, Chris Archer is your number 2 or your number 3 guy. He just happened to be the best, biggest name possible, and he was the number 1 guy in Tampa. Now, speaking of the Rays, you can still get a waiver deal done, and one of the best names out there is Sergio Romo, and the bullpen's good. The bullpen could be a lot better if you add an arm like Romo in there. And then maybe you just have to get by putting Folty and Newcomb as 1 and 2. That's on their best day. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch. The problem is we haven't seen some of their best days recently. Newcomb had his near no hitter, but the 2 starts before that were ugly. And Foltynewicz hasn't been the same guy he was that got him to the All-Star game. If Folty and Newcomb can pitch like they have in their best appearances this year, that's a pretty good 1-2 that can take you pretty far. Is it enough to win the World Series? No. And I don't think there were any moves that were going to make the Braves be able to win the World Series. That just wasn't out there. The only way the Braves are going to win the World Series is to protect the future. And that's what they did. They made this team better, but they didn't give up anything that would cost them the opportunity to win the World Series in the future. But there was nothing they could have done that was going to make them a real legitimate World Series contender this year. So all they can do is take advantage of the East and go get that pennant.
Yeah, maybe Adam, you and I are looking at this. We're playing with house money, but we're here. Why not? Let's do it. I mean, the way that we started the season, if you go back and listen to our discussion before baseball, like in spring training, when we laid out who we think was going to win the East, we all said the Nationals, I think.
Yeah.
And we all laughed saying the Braves have no shot. Well, the Braves have a shot. And like I said, we're playing with house money. We're a year ahead of where we should have been. So are the Phillies. But I think that we see it now. We see what glory can be. We're like Alabama fans were in 2008. We knew we weren't supposed to be there, but the fact that we were there and we came up short, it hurt even worse.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we just need to get our expectations in order and realize that next year is going to be the year that we can start pushing and contending.
Well, I have to say, you've won me over, Ben, with what you've said for 2 weeks now, watching the trades happen and all of that. I was coming last week with a very fan-based mentality of, man, we are right there. Let's just go get somebody. Let's win this whole thing. We're there.
You were
better
beside
than we
yourself
expected to be,
on
right?
trade day.
I was. I absolutely was. I couldn't stand it. But looking at it now, I think it's exactly what you said about the Pirates, and I don't mean to bring up that point again. You look at what other people have had to give up to get pieces that round them out. But to your point, what would we have done? Who would we have gotten? And I think that I have enough faith in the long run that it's going to be there, but I'm just enjoying the ride for this year. I said it in the break, guys. I'm unbuckled for the most part, thinking we can really push and win the East. It would be an easier road, but I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it out. But hey, I'm just happy where we are at the end of the day. I know in a week I've completely flip-flopped on that. I'll take what we've got now, and I'm willing to put some faith in the future because I see that we didn't give up much to get what we got. But I'm not that fuse on that's going to run out for me pretty quick. I think after a season or two, if we keep getting close and don't quite get there, it's going to be, okay, when is all of this really going to pay off? So, but the fact that it's paying off some dividends this year has kind of bought some time, I think.
If the Braves aren't contention next year, then I will be where you are right now, Adam. I will be completely unbuckled by August 1.
Yeah.
If the Braves aren't in contention, because the moves that the Braves have done this year, supposedly should put us in contention for next year.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then either Snit needs to go or Alex Anthopoulos needs to go.
Yeah. Well,
Something needs to happen.
And it needs to be consistent too. It needs to be every year because this farm system's got to produce. This farm system's got to keep the talent pipeline coming. And so, I mean, even if you don't see it next year, but we know that, there's players who are up and coming and you start to see some promise and you start to see some of the things we're trying to get from them unlocked, then I'll be okay for the most part. But it's going to have to be that consistent thing where this is the next guy coming up. This is the next guy coming up. And you start seeing that happen. If that ever starts to drop off and we're not contending, that's where I'll really just be kind of lost with the whole thing.
And there's nothing to make me think that that's not going to be the case. The Braves look good, and the guys that are getting the job done are young and are only going to get more experience. I think Albies is the real deal. I think Acuna is the real deal. I don't think these guys are going to just have like a great season or two and then taper off. I think they're legitimate stars, and in most regards, 4 or 5 tool guys, and they've got a huge potential to be the faces of Atlanta for a long time. And you say all that without even mentioning Freddie Freeman. The Braves are positioned to be very good for the next few years, and the Nationals are in a lousy spot. I don't know how they're going to be able to keep it together, and you got to think at some point the Nationals are going to have to trade Scherzer and start rebuilding. I think it's going to come down to the Braves and the Phillies because the Phillies are young and talented too when they've got good pitching. I think it's going to be the Braves and the Phillies, a thorough rivalry like it was a few years ago, where it's going to be those two contending for the East every year, and the other team hoping to get a good wild card spot.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys. Well, there you go. There's our negative talk. Adam and I have been very down on the Braves trade deadline. Adam's kind of flipping over to Ben's side. I'm still a little down on it. You've heard our down talk on Jalen, of course, our down talk on Urban Meyer. But now it is time to come at you with the sideline warning. Go ahead, Ben. Hit us with your sideline warning.
Well, I touched on this a moment ago, but it's worth getting its own sideline warning, and that is Ronald Acuna. Taking the leadoff spot has been huge for the Braves. I love seeing how his power has shown up in the past couple of weeks, hitting some good home runs, and just filling that leadoff spot, setting the tone for the Braves, I think is going to be critical the rest of the season. And I praise the Braves often because I feel like they do things the old school way, in a very classic way. But putting Acuna there in the number 1 spot is kind of one of the new sabermetric type things, where you put this really good power hitter, this really good 5-tool guy first to really set the tone. And I like that the Braves can hybrid some of the new things with the old things. So here's praise for Brian Snitker for putting Ronald Acuna in that number 1 spot, and for the rookie stepping up and doing a good job so far. Let's hope that continues the rest of the way to the Eastern title.
You're here, Adam.
So last week we talked the WNBA. We've talked wrestling. We've broached a few new topics. I'm actually going to bring up that I want everyone to take a few minutes and do a little bit of research into Australian rules football.
Rugby.
And Dave, you can roll your eyes at me all you want. It's not rugby.
It's not rugby.
It's not rugby. I was just flipping through the other day and landed on, I think it was Fox Sports 2. So it was way down the chain, right?
ESPN, the Ocho.
The Ocho. But it was the Port Adelaide Power versus the Adelaide Crows. Love the team names. Not even Ravens, just Crows, right? And so it's like, what was it that I said? You guys, I think it was like soccer and basketball had a baby while it was married to American football, and it was like, it's like it just has, the players don't flop on the ground when they touch each other. There's not a lot of that unnecessary drama. They hit each other. They're not wearing pads. And just the score was really high. It seemed like every few minutes there was something going on to actually keep your interest. There's not that 2-0 stuff like soccer. I think the final score of the game was 96-93. So it was actually pretty exciting. I enjoyed it. It all came down to the final minute, and there was controversy with a replay review, so it felt like college football in that regard. So everybody just take a few minutes. If you see it on, watch it, give it a few minutes. You may not like it at the end of the day, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'd like for everybody to just kind of give it a chance.
Aussie Rules is a ton of fun. I always like to pull for the Essendon Bombers.
See, I need to find my team now, and we can have a segment on.
They're like the Alabama of Aussie rules.
Oh, nice.
So it was 96 to 93 or something like that.
Yes.
So basically, it was arena football.
It felt like that. The scoring was often enough where it did feel a little bit like arena football, yeah.
Okay.
And the crowd stayed jazzed the whole time, and it wasn't like that annoying Vuvuzela or whatever it was. They were actually cheering and stuff, So I just really enjoyed it. So
okay. Well, guys, I did my venting during this episode. Y'all heard me go off a lot this week, so I'm going to be a little laissez-faire and kind of hands off on my sideline warning. Yeah, did you like my history terminology there?
Quarter word, man. I love it. You're very bourgeois right now.
Hey, I was a history minor, so I've got all that. It is
French, no?
Yes, it is. But anyway, guys, we're trying a new thing out this year. Yahoo Sports, Fantasy Sports has come out now, and they're doing a college fantasy football. We have created a sideline warning college fantasy football league. Go in there, join it up. Join in the league. Go into the Facebook fan group. It is in there. Find where I have put the link. Go in and join. Come in and see if you can beat the champions of life. That would be me. Ravenclaw Redneck, which will be Adam. Ben hasn't joined yet, so we don't know Ben's team.
I'll be there soon.
We don't know. He'll have some classy name, we think.
I'm a classy guy.
By the way, Ben, my daughter has gotten to where she likes to listen to Sideline Warning. So I was re-listening to episode 34 this afternoon. And I was joking on you about having your Whataburger cup. And you say that's not a prop. It's how you keep your voice ready for the show. I'm looking, and I don't see a Whataburger cup today.
Well, I don't always go to Whataburger.
I thought you always had it for the show.
No, just at different times. Usually, when we're recording on a Monday. I don't usually make the Whataburger run on Monday. It's more of a Sunday thing.
Well, we wanted to record on Sunday, but
today I've got a large bottle of water.
Well, that's better for you than Dr. Pepper.
#gallon challenge.
That's much better for you than Dr. Pepper, I will admit. Hey, that gallon is not even close to empty, Ben.
I'm going to be up for a while. Don't worry.
You've got some editing left to do. But guys,
wait, hang on. Sorry, is that Deer Park water?
Indeed.
I hear people get passionate about that brand. I was just curious.
People get very passionate about their water.
Sorry for the inside joke, guys.
That's just coming from a guy from Zephyr Hills.
Hey, is that one of those suburbs of Birmingham?
Zephyr Hills is a suburb of
Florida.
Orlando.
It's not really close to Orlando, but it's in central-ish kind of maybe.
That didn't come up in my research for Orlando suburbs.
It'll be on Dave's list next time.
Okay, that'll be in next week's list. But guys, there you go. There is our sideline warnings for the week. Horrible, guys. The show went off the rails really quick. But there you go. If you want to follow us,
I blame Urban Meyer.
Yeah, I blame Urban. I blame Jalen. But if you want to follow us all, follow the show on Twitter @SW The Show. You can follow me @DAdams419. Follow Ben @TheBenFoster. And Adam is sort of tweeting @RunTideRun. You can, Adam, you're laughing at me now. At Instagram, we're SW The Show. And Adam, if they want to call in and let us have another mailbag segment, how are they going to do that?
They would call 931-44-BLITZ. I'll say it one more time, 931-44-BLITZ. And as we have shown, when we get enough calls, we'll dedicate a whole segment to play your call on the air and talk about it and give our takes. So we come through good on our promise when you call in. So everybody should do that right now.
931-44-BLITZ. I mean, come on, guys. We even had a whole city call us. I mean, the city of Cleveland called to trash Ben and calling him a dumpster fire.
And we gave it right back to him.
Yeah, we did.
Or at least Ben did.
So, I mean, can we have other cities calling us? I mean, come on, let's try. Let's try. I dogged the city of Boston last week for JP Dub wearing the Boston Red Sox hats. So I need the city of Boston to call us.
How about the whole state of Ohio?
Yeah, because I mean,
between the Browns and Urban Meyer and how about the whole state of Ohio? If anybody's out there, call and represent an entire state now. Let's take it to the next level.
Let's do it. But guys, find us on Facebook. You can like the show, facebook.com/SW the show. Also find our Facebook fan group. We talk in there, we chat in there, we make fun of everybody in there. Somebody posted a picture of Tennessee this week, had a photo of a shirt that said "Drown the Tide." And I posted a meme of Dr. Evil going, really? But anyway, guys, we love you. As always, we'll see you next week. And roll tide.
Thanks.
There's your outtake.
Thanks
there
a
it
lot.
is. I hope you're still recording.
Row Tide.
Roll Tide, Dickie now.
Row Tide.
Roll Tide.
Row Tide. Row Tide. I think my team is going to be the Brisbane Lions, Ben, just FYI.
I was picturing you as more of a Sydney Swans.